You wake to a sweet, chalky film on your tongue, there before the coffee, before the sun finds the window. The April air is thin and cold, the kind that nips your ankles as you slip on your stockings. Outside, Orange, New Jersey rattles awake. A trolley screeches, newsboys hawk headlines. A butcher drags a hose across the sidewalk, sluicing last night's blood toward the gutter. 1922 is a busy year, and you're learning to be busy with it. The building on Alden Street breathes like a living thing, warm breath, chemical breath. You push through the door and the shop is already ringing. Clock cases clicking like tiny teeth, brushes whispering over enamel, alcohol hissing in shallow pans. On the center table sits a jar that glows on its own, a soft green smolder, as if dawn were corked inside. The girls joke that the room would be cozy even in a blackout. They're not wrong. Lip, dip, paint, the forewoman says, tapping a pencil in time. Point your brush, ladies. The finer the tip, the faster you finish. Faster means richer. She smiles like a poster, clean, bright, confident. You take your seat. The first dial is a pale moon, the numbers raised like small bones beneath the surface. The ritual is easy to love. Wet the bristles with your lips, dip the tip into the glowing cream, pull a perfect stroke across the 1, and the 2, and the 3. Lip, dip, paint, a rhythm you can ride. The smell of lacquer burrows into your sleeves. Your hands steady themselves the way a dancer's feet remember the floor. There are 30 girls at the tables, and you know most of their laughs. Molly's is a belle, Grace's is a seam ripper, quick and neat. Katie's is a secret she lets you borrow. Someone sings a chorus from last week's vaudeville, and the room hums along. The engineer in his starched shirt passes through with a clipboard and a compliment. Invigorating stuff, this paint. Safe as table salt. Behind glass at the far wall, the male chemists lean over flasks in leaded aprons and rubber gloves. A little joke Molly made once still makes you smirk. Guess the glass is to keep their mustaches from getting all glamorous. You repeat it under your breath and feel yourself grin. Piece rate makes the clock a friend. 500 dials in a good day is better than the laundry, better than the shop. Your mother will have meat for the stew tonight. Your father might skip the extra shift on the railroad. America is a country of wristwatches now, not pocket ones. Boys back from war want their time strapped to their pulse, glowing in movie houses and trolley tunnels, and the backside of a kiss. You get to make the glow. You get to be the glow. At lunch, you open your sandwich and the whole bench lights faintly with your fingertips. The girls squeal. A foreman walking by winks. Harmless, he says. You're lucky, you take your night light with you. When the bell rings, you return to the table, sharper with hunger, quicker with pride. You are good at this. The numbers come clean and precise. You want the forewoman to notice. She does. By quitting time, your thumbnail is slick with shine, and your lips taste like chalk candy. On the street, you and Molly and Grace cup your hands and giggle at the faint, sickly halo you've stolen from the shop. A boy in a cap slows, stares, and says, "Hey, how'd you do that?" Grace taps her teeth with a fingernail. Your grin throws him a little, and that makes all three of you giddier. The world keeps walking, but you feel like you're walking brighter. Saturday night, you rub a finger over your front teeth for a parlor trick. The kitchen goes dark and the trick works. The room answers you. Your kid brother yelps and your mother clucks, half amused, half scolding. Mercy, shut that off. You can't, but you blow out the ember of the moment with a laugh. Your father asks if the pay came on time. It did. You pass him the envelope. He weighs it with his thumb and nods, something unreadable flickering across his face. Pride, maybe. Relief for sure. At church the next morning, you kneel and your hands make a dim prayer of light against the hymnal. You don't show anyone. A secret blessing, you tell yourself. A private proof that good work leaves a mark. Back at the shop, the rhythm deepens. Lip, dip, paint. The brush hairs learn your mouth. You can feel each one now. The way they splay if you're careless, the way a perfect point slides like a skate across fresh ice. The forewoman posts a tally sheet, and your initials land high. The engineer gives a talk about productivity and patriotism, and how science has gifts for the modern woman. Convenience, beauty, opportunity. You believe him because wanting to believe is easier than asking questions, and because the jar in the middle of the table keeps shining no matter what anyone says. Late in the week, a new girl sits across from you. She has pretty curls and a nervous habit of rolling her sleeves. You teach her the ritual. She hesitates at the lip, glancing toward the glass room where the men keep their gloves. "Is that necessary?" she whispers. You lift your brush and smile. It's how you keep the tip sharp, you tell her. No one gets paid for fat numbers. She nods, bites the bristles, and winces at the taste. Like chalk, she says. Like chalk, you agree. That night, lying in bed, you lick your teeth and catch the faintest edge of metal, the whisper of a penny on your tongue. You think of the engineer's smile, of the leaded aprons behind the glass, of the boy on the street blinking at your glow. You think of the word that keeps following you home, luminous, a promise and a dare. You turn out the lamp. The room goes dark, almost. Your palm hovers above the quilt, and the bones beneath your skin answer back with a tender, stubborn shine, as if a tiny clock has been lit inside you and will not stop. You listen to its imagined ticking until your breath finds its rhythm. Lip, dip, paint. You wonder how bright a person can get before it begins to show from the inside. You close your eyes, smiling thinly at the thought, and tell yourself it's only proof you're good at your job. That light like this must mean you're safe and seen and moving up in the tally. Outside, a trolley clangs and recedes. Inside, the glow hangs on you like a promise. The first envelope feels heavier than paper should. You worry it'll telegraph your excitement through your coat, the way a glowing dial throws light through a sleeve. You don't open it until you're 3 blocks from the shop, out of sight of the forewoman's windows and the men behind their glass. When you finally tear the flap, the bills come out warm from your palm, smelling faintly of ink and something metallic, like the shop clings to everything you touch. Piece rate makes you walk faster. Your shoes nip your heels, and you don't care. You take the long way home to pass by the bakery window, just to decide you can afford the braided loaf with the glossy crust, and then you buy it to prove the decision is yours. You add oranges, actual oranges, to the paper sack, because the grocer says sailors bring them up from Florida now like they're easy things. Your mother will pretend not to count, then count anyway, then press her lips together to keep a smile from escaping. At the tenement door you pause, slide your thumb over your front teeth to summon the parlor trick. It works even in the day if you angle the light right, the tiniest ghost of a glow under your smile. You hide it, then hide your pride in hiding it, and climb. Supper is loud in a good way. Your father takes the envelope and does the weighing thing with his thumb, the unreadable flicker again, less unreadable this time. It's honest work, he says, as if someone has challenged him. No one has. Your mother carves meat into the stew till the spoon stands up on its own and says grace twice, once out loud, once with her eyes. Your kid brother asks if the paint could make his marbles glow. You tell him there's not enough of it in the world for that, and he believes you because you sound like someone in the know. On Friday, Molly suggests a speakeasy in Newark. A friendly one, she promises, as if that's a category you can consult in the paper. You ride over in your best coat, collared low in a way the priest would hate, and knock the way Grace taught you. 2 short, 1 long. Behind the door the air is violet with cigarette smoke and jasmine. A trumpet is keeping a secret it refuses to tell all at once. Girls in drop-waist dresses flicker like sequins when they laugh. The bartender's bow tie shines like a lie you're willing to forgive. You claim a scarred table under a pin-up calendar and order something citrusy that bites like gossip. When the band picks up, Ain't We Got Fun? The room claps on 2 and 4, and the floorboards learn your name. A boy with a nice hat shows interest in Molly. Grace is clocking the exits like a girl who reads newspapers. You are suddenly brave. You lick your finger, kill the lamp at your table, and hold your hand out so the bones bloom under the skin. The girls gasp. The boy with the hat says, "Well, I'll be," and asks what factory hires angels. You tell him the brand name of the paint because it sounds glamorous, and you make a joke about bringing your own night light to the movies. You don't say the part where the chemists wear lead aprons behind the glass. The joke lands, the room warms, someone buys a round. The next week you bring new gloves, the kind you can fold in your purse and still feel extravagant about. On your walk to the shop you practice holding your shoulders the way the forewoman does. Upright but never hard. You enter to the hum of the place you've begun to love. Click, whisper, hiss. The jar on the center table is brighter today, or maybe you are. The engineer strolls past with his clipboard, drops a compliment like a coin, and leaves it for you to spend. You do on speed, on steadiness, on strokes so thin they look stitched. At noon you all take your lunches to the loading dock because the sunlight is soft there, and you can tell secrets without them blowing away. The conversation shuffles between movies and rent, and mainsprings that just won't sit right. Katie shows off a ribbon she bought for a nickel. You show off the fact that you could have bought 2 and didn't. Grace produces a newspaper with an article about a lady pilot, and folds it so the picture is on top. Imagine, she says, and you do, a sky of your own, a switch you control. Then the lunch bell snaps you back into the painted utility of your life, which is still yours, and still better than the laundry. Saturdays you become someone new by degrees. A hat with a brim that flirts. A jar of cold cream that promises cinema skin. A phonograph needle that coaxes more life from the same record. Sometimes, late in the evening when the light in the kitchen goes thin and yellow, you uncork your private science. Your fingertips turn the color of summer moths. Your brother claps. Your father pretends not to see. Your mother says, "Enough," and then softer, "Careful now." You tell her everyone says it's harmless. She does not ask who everyone is. You do not volunteer the engineer's smile. When you and the girls catch a matinee on Broad Street, you sit near the back like seasoned critics. In the dark, you rub a thumb over a knuckle and watch it answer you. There it is, your hidden signature. The heroine on the screen faints artfully, and the hero catches her with perfect timing, like he rehearsed it with the projectionist. Grace leans over and whispers, "I'd like to see the ending where she catches herself." You whisper back, "I'd like to see the ending where she doesn't faint." The man in front of you shushes. You both stifle laughter like schoolgirls. The shop gives you a sense of belonging you didn't know you were hungry for. There are nicknames now and braided jokes and favorite seats that become official by repetition. You learn to read the room. When the forewoman is generous, when the tally is off, when the jar's glow looks a notch greener like morning sickness. You teach two new girls how to point their brushes. They wince at the taste. "Like chalk," you say. They agree. You all move your mouths the same way, the shop's little choir. Paydays knit themselves into a rhythm you trust. Meat on the table. Coal for the stove before the bin runs low. A new pair of stockings that don't need mending the same day. You send a few dollars to your aunt in Bayonne because she sent you a charm when you were 10, and you believe in debt as a form of love. You think about saving, then spend on a photograph instead, the kind with painted light you pin to a mirror and call a plan. Sometimes, walking home at dusk, you touch your tongue to the back of your teeth and taste that penny ghost again. A twinge in your jaw stands up like a cat and then smooths its fur, embarrassed. You press two fingers beneath your ear until the ache remembers how to act small. At night, when the room goes dark, almost, your hands bloom under the covers, and you feel lucky to keep a little lamp with you that no landlord can tax. On a Monday, after a weekend of noise and plans, Molly doesn't make the morning trolley. You shrug it off, girls miss, life happens. By Wednesday you're rehearsing what you'll say, when she strolls back in late and full of stories. On Friday the forewoman writes someone else's name in Molly's seat and nods at you like she's adjusted a picture frame. The room doesn't feel dimmer. That would be something you could name. It just feels thinner, like a hem let out one stitch too far. That evening you take the long way home again and stop in front of the jeweler's. The window glows with 100 moons, each dial bright as a promise. You stand there long enough for your breath to fog the glass, then draw a little 12 with your pinky in the cloud before it fades. Your jaw twinges once, twice, sharp then shy. You think about oranges, about lead aprons, about a boy in a hat saying angels. You tell yourself it's nothing, and you are almost right. You go to bed with the shop's rhythm still in your mouth, lip, dip, paint dot, like a prayer you're not ready to question. The tiny clock under your skin ticks along, faithful as ever. The ache starts like weather, dull and distant, the kind of pressure you blame on rain. You press your tongue against the back molar and feel a bruise that shouldn't be there, a slow thunder building in enamel. At the bench you work through it, jaw set, stroke steady, lip, dip, paint. The ritual steadies the room the way a hymn steadies a church. By noon the ache has learned your name. The forewoman's pencil taps out the pace. Grace glances over when you flinch at a bright shard of pain. "Clove oil helps," she whispers, producing a corked vial like a magician. You dab a drop onto the sore spot and the sweetness blooms, warm, numbing, too brief. At supper, meat tastes like a penny rubbed clean. Your mother notices the way you chew and says nothing the way mothers say everything. That night, when you kill the lamp, your hands bloom as usual, tender moth light under the skin. You tell yourself the glow and the pain live in different rooms. You don't test the door between them. By Friday the tooth is a lit match. The dentist's office is all tile and iodine, a radio cracking out a sermon that keeps losing the station. He peers into your mouth with a mirror and a frown. "Just a cavity," he pronounces, as if you've tried to make it something else. The forceps are cold. The pull is not. It feels like a thread yanked from a hem, that was never meant to be opened. Relief should arrive on cue. It doesn't. The hole does not heal. The edges stay angry, soft as a soaked page. Your breath goes sour with a smell you don't recognize and can't escape, the damp rot of something that should be bone. When a sneeze catches you off guard, a tiny hard thing clicks against your tongue. You spit into your handkerchief. In the light, it looks like a grain of rice. In the half-dark, it glints. You fold the cloth and don't tell anyone. Molly is still gone. You ask around soft, then softer. Someone says flu. Someone else says a man. The forewoman says nothing and draws a line through Molly's name on the tally, neat as a cut. The room feels thinner again, the hem let out another stitch. You switch to soups. You talk less. In the shop, the jar at the center seems brighter, or maybe it's your eyes, tired, jumpy, hungry for reasons. The engineer stops by with a smile and a story about progress. Marvel of modern science, he says, patting the table like he's blessing it. Behind glass, the men in their rubber gloves look like they're rehearsing for a different future. Another night, another sneeze, another glitter on your handkerchief. When you hold it near the stove, the weave answers back with faint sparks, as if the cloth remembered the shop better than you do. Your mother scrubs the sink and hums a hymn. You tuck the proof into your pocket, like a sin. The second dentist is brisker, sharper, keen to be right. You girls chew the brushes, don't you? He asks, eyes already on the tray. You nod because the truth is boring, and you've run out of better stories. He probes, prods, tuts. Bad hygiene, he decides. Another pull. Another hole. Clove oil again. You catch yourself praying to a fruit. On a Monday the company sends its own man, a doctor with clean cuffs and a voice like a folded newspaper. He asks gentle questions with hard answers already loaded behind them. Have you entertained, gentlemen? He says, not looking at your face. You don't understand the shape of the accusation until the word arrives. Quiet, poisonous, practiced. Syphilis. It lands on the table between you with the same small glow as the paint, and for a second you hate light itself. Grace's hand finds your knee under the table. She's engaged to decency, Grace says, blunt as a hammer. The company doctor writes something anyway. When he leaves, the forewoman won't meet your eyes. Shame is cheap, and it spends easy. Rumor is a faster painter than you are. In the stairwell, two girls stop talking when your steps creak. On the trolley, a woman from St. Cloud Lane shifts away, as if breaths were contagious in only one direction. At church, the priest's sermon wanders into the language of plagues and punishments, and you feel the pew grow splinters under your palms. At night the room goes dark, almost. You raise your hand, and your bones answer you with the stubborn candle they've become. You think of the engineer's smile, of lead aprons behind glass, of the word that tried to rewrite your body into a cautionary tale. Your jaw throbs in time with the imagined ticking under your skin. Lip. Dip. Paint. The hymn has changed key. You lie there, clove-sweet and copper-tongued, and practice the sentences you'll need if the rumors harden into something official. You don't know yet that a chemist will cross the glass. You don't know yet that a judge will lean in to hear you. You only know that a hole should close and hasn't, that your handkerchief sparkles when it shouldn't, and that someone somewhere is getting paid to call you unclean. You close your eyes against the glow, and it doesn't go. The letter arrives folded into importance, cream paper, clean type, the company's crest pressed so deep you can feel its pride with your fingertip. Your mother hands it over like it might stain. You slit the envelope with a butter knife and watch the words line up against you. Out of concern for your health, our medical officer has reviewed your case, findings consistent with certain social conditions. The phrase sits there coy and vicious. You can hear the whisper they mean but won't print. At the clinic the air is sharp with carbolic in winter. Linoleum squeaks under shoes that never hurry for girls like you. The company doctor appears with clean cuffs and a pen that writes before you speak. He asks questions that aren't questions. Have you kept company with men? Do you drink? Do you understand the responsibility of a woman's reputation? He does not ask how many dials you finished last week or whether the hole in your gum refuses to knit. He shines his little lamp into your mouth, frowns at the stubborn red, nods as if a puzzle has finally agreed to be simple. Syphilis, he says, low and rehearsed, like a prayer in a language designed to shame. The word smells like iodine and dust. You taste pennies and clove oil, and something that used to be your future. Grace is waiting on the bench, hands clasped so hard her knuckles have gone pale moons. When you tell her, she looks as if someone has slapped her from across a crowded room. Lies travel faster than truth, she says, voice steady, jaw set. She has a notebook in her lap, Names of girls, dates, aches, pulls, holes that don't heal. She's been making a map in case anyone ever cares to look. By the end of the week, the map has more pins. Katie's gums won't stop weeping. Anna's ear aches like a bell rung too hard. A new girl wipes her nose and stares at the glitter left on her handkerchief, as if it told a joke she can't afford to laugh at. You hover between wanting to gather them up and wanting to hide them under the floorboards of your silence, so the rumors can't find them. The rumors do. They bloom like mold where the room runs damp. A neighbor begins taking a different stairwell. The grocer's smile goes thin. A boy on the trolley says something you can't unhear, and his friends find it very, very funny. The priest's homily wanders into the country of fallen women, and never points a finger you can catch, only a shadow that lands in your lap. Company men start appearing where they never did. At the end of the aisle at Stouts, at the church steps, outside the shop door with polite hats and polished shoes. Welfare supervisors, they call themselves, soft voices and hard notebooks. They ask after your moral hygiene, that elegant knife. They cluck about how the newspapers do love a scandal, and how decent girls would never invite one. They suggest, ever so gently, that treatment costs money best not wasted if the cause can't be cured with medicine. They suggest, ever so firmly, that troublemakers don't last long on tallies. You learn to read the new rhythm: lip, dip, paint, lie, deny, blame. The jar in the center glows as innocently as ever, the way a storm cloud can look like a lamb if you don't check the horizon. One afternoon a man from the company arrives with a bouquet of assurances and a single condition. He will make sure the bills disappear if your voice does. He will arrange a charity bed if you sign the paper on his clipboard. He will believe you're a good girl if you promise never to speak like a bad one. You stare at the signature line until the letters blur into a long white tooth. Grace clears her throat. "We'll show it to our own doctor," she says. The man smiles the smile of someone who expects to win even when he's losing. "Of course," he says, and leaves the bouquet behind like a threat. The day Molly's sister comes to the shop, time stops pretending to be a gentleman. Her hat is wrong for mourning. Grief rarely checks the mirror. She stands by the center table, unwraps a little box, and lays a tooth inside it like an offering. They said what they always say. She tells you, voice gone flat from use. But the undertaker, he said her jaw came apart like wet bread. The girls stop breathing in neat batches. The forewoman walks over, takes the box, closes the lid as if she's tucking a child into an early grave, and whispers that it's unseemly to make a scene. You wonder what size apron her word unseemly would wear. You and Grace start meeting after shifts, kitchen table turned into a war room. Names, dates, doctors who won't look you in the eye. The radiator clanks like a bad conscience. You pass the clove oil and the latest letter and the newspaper clipping about radium water tonics sold to rich men who like their death expensive. Grace reads aloud and snorts. "Marvel of modern science," she says, and underlines a sentence until it bleeds. You knock on doors. Some open with relief. At least now there are words to lean on, shoulders to borrow. Some open a crack and stop. One woman listens and then steps back without a word, as if you were the weather trying to come in. You don't blame her. Weather ruins things. You are starting to understand the forecast printed on your own bones. When you finally sit across from a lawyer, he keeps adjusting the angle of your chair by performing concern. He asks about men before he asks about paint. He says the word alleged as if it could bandage a wound. He mentions the statute of limitations and the cost of experts and the size of the company and the size of you, which is small enough to tuck into a footnote. He says he is sorry in the tone of a man who has already moved on to his next appointment. You leave with Grace's hand hot around your wrist, both of you feeling like you've been wrung and put back on the shelf. At night, you dream a different courtroom, polished wood, careful words, and a judge who does not need you to speak loudly to hear you. In the morning, the mirror offers your same face with a new permission to be angry. You try it on. It fits. The company posts a new notice above the tally sheet. Girls are reminded to observe proper conduct on and off the premises. Impropriety reflects poorly on our reputation. You read it 3 times and decide the sentence has confessed more than it meant to. Grace sketches the words into her notebook like evidence. Katie draws a little skull in the margin and colors it with the stub of a green pencil. The forewoman removes the skull and leaves the sentence. A reporter does come, finally, not to your kitchen but to the stoop where questions can blow away. He smells like ink and deadlines. He asks you to repeat the part about the glow. You show him your hand in the shade of the hallway. He catches his breath like a man who thinks he has discovered a meteor. Can I quote that? He asks. Quote this, Grace says, and tells him about the holes that don't heal, about the doctor who made a diagnosis out of a slur, about Molly's sister and the box. The reporter scribbles until his pencil snaps. He promises nothing and everything. You learn the weight of both. On Sunday, your father doesn't take communion. He stares at his hands like they belong to a stranger and says, I don't like men who hide behind glass. It is the first time he's mentioned the aprons at all. Your mother kisses your temple in an absent way that means she is thinking far ahead, into a hallway none of you has walked yet. By months, and the smear has done its work. It sits on your name like a film you can't wash off. And yet, in the creases of it, in the places the cloth can't reach, other words begin to take hold, resinous, stubborn proof. You practice saying them, quiet at first, then louder, as if volume could make a spine. One evening, as the winter air slices thin and mean, a man in a rumpled coat steps out from the shadow of the glass room. The first one you've seen from that side without an apron. He hesitates like someone about to cross a river he's been warned against. Miss Fryer, he says then to you. Miss, he knows your name. He knows your name. I can't stay, he murmurs, glancing over his shoulder. But you're not wrong. He presses a card into Grace's palm, so quickly it feels like a theft. There are tests, he says. Bones don't lie. Then he is gone, swallowed by the door that always swung one way before now. You and Grace stand there with the card between you, the hallway a wind tunnel, the jar on the table humming its soft, oblivious star. For the first time in weeks, the taste in your mouth is not just metal and regret. It is the edge of a match, the bright bite of a beginning. You tuck the card beside the clove oil in your pocket. The rumor mill can grind on. You have new flour to make. Outside, the trolley clangs. Inside, your bones answer with the same old glow, but tonight it feels less like a sentence and more like a signal. The card burns a hole in your pocket all day. Cheap pasteboard, expensive risk. After shift, you and Grace duck into a diner that smells like hot grease and nickels. You slide into a booth where the light is sour and safe. Grace lays the card flat, as if it might run. A name. An office in Newark. 2 words penciled along the edge like contraband, bone test. The man who opens the office door is not what you expect. No apron, no glass, no clipboard smile. His tie is crooked from thinking. He asks careful questions, and lets your answers stand upright instead of knocking them down to fit a form. There is a way, he says, to prove where the glow lives. He shows you a black sheet the size of a book cover, photographic plate, he calls it. Breathe over this, he says. You do, cheeks hollowing, breath a little clove sweet, a little penny sharp. He slips the plate away like a magician palming a coin. Come back tomorrow. You don't sleep. Your jaw thrums and the room refuses to go fully dark, as usual, but the part of you that has been praying for proof sits up straight in the bed and refuses to lie down. The next afternoon the plate tells a story with no verbs wasted. A milky fog where your breath went. A constellation where no sky should be. Your bones hold it, the doctor says, voice low, almost kind. It leaches out slow like a bad promise. It settles where blood moves the least, teeth, jaw, hips. He doesn't say girls, and somehow that is also kindness. He examines your mouth like a church he respects, gently, solemnly, not pretending the holes are anything but altars no one meant to build. This isn't hygiene, he says. This isn't sin. This is exposure. The word lands and sits with dignity. Exposure. Grace writes it in her notebook and underlines it twice. News moves differently when it carries proof. In kitchens and on stoops, girls crowd the margins of the plate with their fingers, careful not to smudge the small fog that makes your breath visible. Katie cries without apology. Anna laughs once, sharp, furious, alive. Bones don't lie, someone says, and the sentence passes from mouth to mouth like a password. With proof comes a new breed of visitor. A young woman from the university, sensible shoes, eyes like scalpel steel, asks if she may record symptoms and dates. She speaks to you the way the engineer never did, as if your body were a ledger worth balancing. A gray man from the county, sleeves rolled to honesty, wants samples, hair, nail, bits of tooth that have come loose like pebbles after a storm. You give what you can without feeling robbed. The first reporter who treated you like a meteor comes back with his editor's caution in his hat brim. He looks at the plate and forgets his caution. This is a headline, he says, then catches himself. And a lawsuit, Grace says, not bothering to be gentle. He writes the word down like a man learning to spell his own name. You start collecting girls the way some people collect stamps, carefully, reverently, building a gallery of faces and aches. A dozen, then 2 dozen, then lists of names that won't fit on one page. The more you gather, the clearer the pattern grows, like thread pulled across a quilt. The same sore mouths, the same thin wrists, the same night glow that once felt like a parlor trick and now feels like an alarm. Lawyers still say alleged like a shield they can hide behind. One calls your case novel, meaning risky. Another calls it tragic, meaning expensive. Then a thin man in a cheap suit listens without adjusting your chair. He doesn't smile when you show him the plate. He doesn't flinch when you say exposure. He asks for the names in Grace's notebook and copies them by hand, as if the act of writing could make you real. "We'll file," he says. "We'll make them answer under oath." The word oath feels right in your mouth, like something that belongs in a church and a courtroom and a kitchen table. Filing is a ritual without music, paper, stamps, fees that make your mother press her lips till they blanch. The company replies with a stack of paper thick enough to stop a bullet. Their words say regret and concern and no admission and an old favorite impropriety. Your lawyer picks through the stack with a fork, expressionless, and finds the bones of their position. "Delay," he says. They think time is on their side. You think of the judge leaning in, the way your breath learns to be shallow when pain sits down to supper. The company's doctor tries once more to paste the old label on you. Certain social conditions. You bring the plate. You bring Grace. You bring the rumor of things you now know by name. Lab notebooks altered. Warnings whispered and then swallowed. Aprons and gloves for them, bare mouths for you. The doctor's eyes do a little dance that means he wishes his pen could erase the century. A winter storm bruises the town. You and the girls fill a church basement with coats and thermoses and a map pinned to a corkboard. Who needs what? Who can spare $1? Whose heat just went out? The radiator hammers like a bad heart. You pass around a plate, not for tithes but for teeth, small, chalky, luminous when the light goes down. You make a dark joke and nobody stops you. Laughter is a kind of heat. On a late-night trolley, a man across the aisle tips his hat and says he read about you in the paper. "Brave," he offers. The word lands wrong at first. Bravery implies choice. Then you shrug and let it sit. Courage is just staying in the room with your own truth when the door keeps trying to shut. The hearing date arrives like a birthday you didn't ask for. April. The courthouse smells of varnish and damp wool. You and Grace sit shoulder to shoulder on a bench hard enough to correct posture. The company's men move like furniture that has always been expensive, polished, heavy, meant to impress. Your lawyer's cheap suit looks newly pressed and necessary. In the hall, the man from behind the glass, rumpled coat, crooked tie, passes you with his eyes fixed on the floor, as if looking at you might burn him. At the corner he pauses, turns, and nods once. It isn't apology. It isn't forgiveness. It is acknowledgement, and it is more than you were told to expect from the world. Before the bailiff calls your case, you press your fingers to your jaw and feel the small drum of 8 keeping time. You think of Molly's sister and the little box. You think of the girls whose names fill Grace's careful columns. You think of the plate that caught your breath and refused to lie. You think of the jar on the center table humming to itself like a star that forgot what it was for. "Ready?" Grace asks. "As I'll ever be," you say, and the words are steadier than your hands. The door swings open. The room is wood and light, and men who believe paper is stronger than bone. You walk in anyway, carrying your own evidence. Spark under the skin, story in the teeth, truth that glows even when you wish it wouldn't. The courtroom smells like varnish and borrowed suits. Heat clanks through iron ribs and settles low, where the reporters crouch with notebooks like hungry birds. You sit straight on a bench designed to punish slouching. Grace's shoulder is a warm fact against yours. The bailiff calls the room to order, and you feel the words pass through you like a wire tightening a fence. The company men arrive in a herd. Polished shoes, crisp cuffs, faces arranged to suggest reasonable doubt in all directions. Their lead counsel stands with the confidence of a lighthouse. He expects the tide to obey. Your lawyer, in his honest, shiny elbows, rises and clears his throat, a man asking a mountain to listen. The judge is older than you hoped and kinder than you feared. His eyes mark the distance between the tables, then the distance between your mouth and the truth you've carried in it. "Gentlemen," he says, and the room leans forward. "We will keep the pace brisk." It sounds like mercy in a place that rarely speaks the language. They try delay first. Continuance, investigation, expert schedules, calendars that simply cannot be moved. Your lawyer stands with a page that shakes only a little. Your Honor, he says, time is not neutral here. He doesn't have to say what everyone can read in your faces. The judge exhales like a man setting a fragile watch. Denied, he says. The stenographer's keys click the word into history. Your turn comes sooner than you prepared for, and later than your jaw would like. You lift your hand. The oath dries your mouth and steadies your spine. When you say, I do, it sounds like a vow to more than paper. Your lawyer asks first, and his questions arrive like stepping stones laid in shallow water. Where did you work? What did you do? Say it the way you would to someone who needs to see it. You tell them, the jar on the table breathing dawn, the bristles learning your mouth, the rhythm that married your hands, lip, dip, paint. The phrase hangs in the room and echoes off wood, 3 small knocks on a larger door. He asks what happened next, and you try to make a straight line out of a spiral. The ache that arrived like weather, the tooth that left like a pulled thread, the holes that refused the decent order of healing, the handkerchief that glittered as if it had learned a trick from your breath. You speak softly because volume can be mistaken for drama. Your steadiness cannot. Then the company's lawyer rises, a man built to unmake stories. He smiles a courtroom smile. Miss, he says, you've entertained gentlemen? The words land like a stain thrown from a safe distance. He does not say syphilis because he doesn't need to. The rumor does the work without being summoned. You feel your mother's back stiffen 3 benches behind you. Grace's hand finds the rail. No, you say, and let the word sit. He tries again, circling with kinder knives. Did you understand instructions? Were you perhaps careless? Did you bite the brush out of impatience? Paid by the piece, yes, he adds, as if hunger were a sin. You picture the lead aprons behind glass, the men in gloves careful as surgeons of their own futures. We were taught to point with our lips, you answer. We were praised for speed. His pen pauses. The stenographer keeps typing. Your lawyer lifts the photographic plate like a small moon. The judge leans forward. The company's counsel objects, foundation, relevance, theatrics, words with hooks. Your lawyer says only, bones don't lie. The judge gestures him on. He sets the plate in the sunlight slanting through the high windows, and the fog blossoms where your breath once warmed it. A reporter inhales sharply and forgets to pretend he didn't. The county medical officer testifies after you, his voice the color of ash. He speaks of deposits and necrosis and decay that travels with a clockmaker's patience. He says exposure in the way a man says a legal name. The company's expert counters with abstractions that make the air colder. Human frailty, contagious vices, hysteria in the feminine constitution. He says alleged so often it starts to sound like a weather pattern. Grace takes the stand, and the room recalibrates around her. She has her notebook, of course, names, dates, pulls, holes, fevers that never learned to break. The company's lawyer tries to turn the book into gossip. Grace turns it into ledger. Molly, she says, and the breath moves differently through the room. Her sister brought her tooth in a box. She lifts her eyes to the judge. It wasn't a rumor. The stenographer's keys slow, then catch up. On cross, they try to tangle Grace in earnestness. Was she angry? Is she encouraging agitation? Has she ever made a complaint about wages that might suggest a grudge? Grace smiles like a seam being reinforced. I'm encouraging the truth, she says. And I'm out of grudges. I spent them already paying for doctors. A woman in the back coughs to hide a laugh that is not unkind. Midday recess tastes like tin and fear. In the corridor, a man you recognize from behind the glass stands very still, as if sudden movement could set off an explosion. He doesn't meet your eyes, but he speaks to your shoulder. They told me to change a word in a report, he says low. I didn't. He presses a folded sheet into your hand, notes in a careful, nervous script. Be careful, he adds, which is not help and is exactly help. When you look up, he is gone, swallowed by the same door that kept you out. Back inside, the company calls its forewoman. She arrives buttoned to the throat by a duty that looks like fear. She speaks of proper conduct and warnings given. Did you instruct these girls to put the brushes in their mouths? Your lawyer asks. She hesitates the way a person does when one truth can save them and ruin the world they depend on. It was customary, she says finally, each syllable all alone. The judge makes a note in his own hand. You feel your jaw unclench, just once, in spite of itself. The afternoon grows long-legged and mean. The company's counsel objects to your very breath. Your lawyer objects to their objections. The judge keeps time with a pencil and a patience that looks expensive. Reporters shuffle paper like a breeze. Then, As if remembering the choreography, the company pivots to mercy. A settlement whispered like a prayer, a lump sum, a monthly stipend, medical costs to be considered, all without admitting a thing. Their voices get softer when they talk about money, the way men do when counting at a funeral. Your lawyer asks for a moment. The judge grants it. Everyone pretends not to watch you think. In the hallway, your body becomes a conference table. Pain pulls up a chair. Pride leans against the wall. Anger paces. Grace stands at the window and counts pigeons to stay upright. What if we hold out, you say, and they run out the clock? She doesn't turn. Then we make a clock out of what we have, she answers. Something that keeps time for the girls after us. She faces you then, eyes bright with the math of it. Precedent, she says, and the word lands like a small, hard fruit, bitter, nourishing. Back in the room, your lawyer speaks for you because that is the language the system understands. He declines their first offer, their second, their careful insult in gold leaf. He asks the judge to move the trial up. He asks for depositions at bedsides. He asks, in his own way, for time to stop pretending it is neutral. The judge grants what he can and looks older for it. Dusk turns the windows black. The bailiff lights lamps that turn the room the color of old honey. Your jaw throbs in time with the imagined tick under your skin. Lip, dip, paint. 3 words, 3 blows, 3 pieces of a truth you have carried farther than anyone promised you would have to. The judge raises his gavel, not to end but to pause. We'll adjourn until morning, he says. You stand on legs that surprise you by holding. As you pass the defense table, the lead counsel murmurs, "For your own sake." It could be threat, it could be habit. You do not answer. You have learned that silence can be its own cross-examination. On the steps outside, flashbulbs pop like hail. Someone asks how it feels to glow. Someone else asks if money can make you whole. You say, "We're not here to be whole. We're here to be heard." The reporter who forgot his caution earlier lowers his pencil, just for a second, and nods like a man who recognizes a landmark when he sees one. Night takes the building back. You and Grace descend the stone stairs one careful step at a time. The city wind finds your coat, and your bones answer with their small, obstinate light, evidence you can't put down even when you want to. Tomorrow will bring more paper, more objections, more men who think words are stronger than what shines through skin. You slip the folded note from the man behind the glass into your pocket, where it warms against the plate that once caught your breath. Between them a thin current hums, proof and witness, story and signal. You touch your jaw and count the beats to steady yourself. The clock in the courthouse tower strikes once, twice, 3 times, clean, official sound cutting the dark. You answer with your own quiet ticking and keep walking. The offer arrives in polished language that smells faintly of ink and condescension. A lump sum, a monthly stipend that calls itself lifetime with a straight face, medical bills considered if convenient, all without admission of liability, that phrase like a glove laid between their hand and your skin. Your lawyer translates the legal to human. It's not justice, he says. It's what they'll pay to keep the clock from striking again. You hold the paper as if it might bruise. 10,000 looks like rescue on the page, and something smaller in the room. You try to picture the pile it makes on a table, then the holes it falls into, doctors, rent, coal, a future that now speaks in the conditional tense. Your mother pours tea with both hands and still misses the cup. Your father studies the wallpaper like it might confess what he can't say out loud. Grace is a column of resolve at your elbow. Precedent, she reminds you. The girls in Illinois are watching. You nod because you've run out of ways to pretend your time isn't a currency someone else is eager to spend. Depositions move to bedsides. A stenographer sets her machine on your quilt. She looks at your jaw the way kind people look at thunderstorms, respectfully, helplessly. You swear the oath again, breath thin, voice steady by habit. The company sends a man who says humanitarian as if he's donating blankets, not buying silence. You ask him to say sorry. He can't form the S. You sign. Your name travels down the page like a tired soldier. The pen leaks a little. You press hard, so the letters leave a ridge. Grace signs, too, jaw clenched, eyes bright with the arithmetic of compromise. When the check finally arrives, it feels warm from someone else's hands. You turn it over like a photograph and fail to find the face you want it to show. The paper breeds more paper. Receipts. Authorizations. Press statements in which men congratulate men for their concern. Your lawyer distracts the worst of it, but a line finds its way to your door. No admission. It reads like a dare. You hold the newspaper to the lamp, and the letters do not soften. The stipend comes monthly, regular as shame. It buys heat and laudanum and the kind of broth that forgives your mouth for not being a mouth anymore. The doctor leaves small amber bottles on the table like apologies. You may feel tired, he offers, which is like saying the ocean may feel damp. You are tired the way a bell is tired. The sound never quite leaves. Photographs arrive from Illinois. Girls you've never met holding their hands to their jaws in the same tender shape, the same bright ache under the skin. They've heard about the settlement. They want the math and the map, want to know which doors opened when you knocked hard instead of nice. You write back with specifics, names of doctors who will look you in the eye, the phrase bones don't lie, the warning that the company will try to run out the calendar and call it fate. You end with hold each other. You mean it as instruction and prayer. Some nights you count dollars, most nights you count breaths. The zeros stop being impressive, the pauses between inhales do not. Coal pops in the grate like small applause you haven't earned. Your mother warms a spoon and presses it against your cheek to trick the ache into loosening. It doesn't. Pain has learned your schedule. It shows up early and stays late. A charity lady visits with a notebook and the habit of speaking in plurals. We are so inspired. We are heartsick. We will be in touch. You nod and try not to resent the way her eyes travel your edges, as if mapping where the light escapes. When she leaves, you rehearse not being angry at people who arrive late to the truth and ask for tea. Grace keeps working the long end of the story. She attends hearings, cajoled by a body that wants to lie down and a spirit that won't. She learns how to say industrial hygiene, so it sticks in rooms that would rather hear girl trouble. She sends you updates written on the back of grocery lists, each bullet a stitch in a flag you'll never get to wave. Inspectors, standards, a committee that promises to publish findings before the year gets coy again. You pin the notes beside the photograph on your mirror until the tape gives up. On a rare good morning you walk to the baker with your mother and discover that the world can still be ordinary. Women arguing about egg prices, a boy tossing a newspaper onto a porch like a dare, a dog deciding against a puddle at the last second. The bell over the bakery door pretends nothing has changed. The clerk wraps a loaf, so the paper whispers. Your mother adds 2 lemon drops to the order like a treaty. On the walk home, you tire too quickly and hate the bench for being so grateful to have you. The settlement buys visits from reporters in better hats. They ask if you feel vindicated. The word sits wrong in your mouth, too hard, too clean. We feel heard, you say, and then because truth demands interest, and we feel late. One of them asks what you would tell the girls who still bite their brushes. You look into the camera and say, "You deserve to grow old." The sentence leaves a taste like iron and honey. Spring rips open to summer. Heat makes the city smell like metal and fruit. Your jaw has a weather of its own now. Storms that arrive without warning, sudden clearings that feel like lies. A neighbor's baby is christened. You send a rattle wrapped in a scrap of muslin, your handwriting steadier than your legs. At night you dream of water, cool, depthless, kind. In the morning there's only the basin and a cloth and the ritual of becoming presentable to a world that measures worth in uprightness. On a day that should have been another day, your father sits at the end of your bed and admits he is afraid. Not of death, he says, but of misunderstanding, that some future clerk will file your life under scandal instead of sacrifice. You take his hand and feel the old work in it, the calluses that built your roof and your good shoes and your stubbornness. Write my name where they can't erase it, you tell him. He nods and looks like a man who has been given a job he knows how to do. The monthly check arrives again, crisp and indecent. You sign the back and feel your name thin to a line. You try to imagine admitting what they refused to, not guilt, but the simple sentence we knew. You imagine how light would leave that room. Grace brings flowers that smell like clean rain and paperwork that smells like rooms where decisions pretend to be born. They're drafting rules, she says. Not just for us, for everyone. The word everyone lands like a benediction in a language you still trust. You hold the flowers to your face until the petals cool your fever. Make them real, you whisper. Make them stick. Grace squeezes your wrist in a promise she would sign in blood if asked. You sleep more. You dream a quieter clock. In the liminal hours when the light is gray and merciful, you imagine the factory floor empty and the jar on the table dark, just a jar at last. You imagine the girls' hands clean of tricks, their mouths used for songs and arguments and kisses that don't taste like chalk. You imagine the engineer behind glass with his gloves off, holding his own breath up to a plate and nodding when it tells the truth. You imagine a government office with too many files and just enough power. On an afternoon of forgiving weather, you sit at the window and watch laundry surrender to wind. Your mother naps in a chair beside you, her hand trailing a hymn across the armrest. The stipend check lies on the table, half cashed in the form of fruit and morphine and stamps. A patch of sunlight finds your wrist. Under your skin, the faintest glow answers, your stubborn little lantern, your evidence, your curse, your proof. You lift your hand and let it be seen. You are not ashamed of the light anymore. You are only tired of what it had to cost to make it visible. The clock on the mantel ticks louder than it used to. You don't know how many chapters your body can still write, but you can feel the shape of an ending you didn't choose getting closer, not as a cliff but as a shoreline. The tide runs both ways. Some things it leaves. You lower your hand, touch the edge of the check, and think about breath, not the number left, but the price already paid for each one taken. You think about girls in other towns, other years, teaching themselves to keep their mouths for words instead of work. You think about Grace standing in a room where rules are being invented and refusing to sit down until they're written in ink that doesn't fade. You close your eyes. The light stays, gentle and insistent, the way a promise does when it belongs to more than one person, when it belongs to everyone. The room smells like phenol and lemon drops. Afternoon light lies low on the quilt, the way a cat does when it knows which bed is its job. Your breath has learned a shorter road. It takes it, stubborn and small. The morphine sours, then softens the edges. Somewhere in the house, your father oils the clock because he can fix that one. Grace arrives with a newspaper creased into conviction. The headline doesn't use your name. Headlines rarely do, but the words lean in your direction. Standards, inspections, exposure limits. A committee with a long title that sounds like a promise if you say it slowly. They wrote it down, she says, dropping into the chair your mother keeps warm for her. Not all of it. Enough to make it harder to look away. She doesn't say in time. She doesn't have to. Your jaw answers for her. You hold the paper and your hands tremble, not from nerves but from being hands too long. There's a paragraph about dial painters in Illinois and New Jersey, a line about protective gear, a photograph of a man in a lab coat wearing a face like caution. You think of the glass room, the aprons, the gloves. You think of girls who will never learn the trick with their lips because someone finally admitted it was a trick. You breathe in the ink, and it smells like the inside of a church, like words that have been lit and read aloud. At night the radiator hammers like a stubborn heart. Your mother swabs your lips with a damp cloth and hums a hymn that never learned a second verse. She tucks the blanket, so its weight pretends to be strength. When she thinks you're sleeping, she takes out the family Bible and writes your name where births and deaths and the kind of miracles you don't brag about live together on one page. The pen hesitates, then commits. The line belongs to more than the day it marks. The stipend check sits in a teacup on the dresser. You've started keeping them there before they turn to receipts and laudanum and coal. Money felt like a ladder once. Now it's a rope that keeps you tethered to the present tense while the shoreline moves. You're grateful for the rope. You are tired of the tide. The priest comes with his sturdy kindness and a worry that won't sit still. He talks about suffering like a road some saints take on purpose. You let him speak until he runs out of church. Then you say, "Tell me the part where truth changes things." He nods, as if you've reminded him of a line he meant to include. He leaves with your mother's lemon drops and the look of a man practicing a better sermon on the way down the stairs. On a good morning, meaning a morning, you sit up long enough to watch laundry reach for wind. The street throws up its usual theater. A boy dragging a stick along a fence, a milkman confessing to a door he hopes belongs to a forgiving wife, a dog picking loyalty over instinct at the last possible second. Ordinary things hold. You count them because counting is one of the few magics you still trust. Grace brings you names like gifts. A woman doctor who doesn't flinch. A young man from the university who says industrial hygiene like a hymn. A widow in Ottawa, different town, same ache, who has learned to say exposure to men who used to say impropriety. It's catching, Grace says, and smiles at the kind of contagion the priest forgot to warn about. You sleep more. You dream a room that finally goes dark, properly dark, where jars are only jars and girls point their brushes with clean water and patience. You dream a switch on a wall marked off and a hand, maybe yours, maybe Grace's, finding it without having to ask permission. You wake and the glow is still there under your skin, the loyal ember that refuses to let the room forget. You hate it, then forgive it, then lean on it like a night light. A reporter comes one last time, softer now, Less hungry for lines, he can put his byline above. He asks if you have any message for the girls who will come after. You think of your brother's marbles, your father's clock, the box with Molly's tooth, the plate that caught your breath and told on you. Your mouth won't do speeches anymore, so you give him a sentence that fits inside what's left. Make them write it down. He waits, pen poised, because he can tell there's a second half. You give him that too. Make them keep it there. The doctor says the merciful things. Your mother hears only merciful. Your father hears the clock. Grace hears everything and decides which pieces to carry for you. You put your hand over hers and feel the bones on both sides shining, the same stubborn signal passing different lanterns. On a cool evening that pretends to be spring, your father opens the window and the air learns your name the way rooms do. A neighbor's radio finds a ballad and loses it, finds it again. Down on the street, two girls walk home from work with their heads together, laughing about a joke not made at anyone's expense. You want to tell them a better one. You want to tell them where to stand in the photograph so the light hits their faces and not their bones. You ask for the jar. Not the one from the shop. The one your brother used for Firefly's back before he knew the word exposure, before you knew the taste of pennies. He brings it, lid off, empty, and you set it on the sill where the last light of the day can turn it into something that isn't a warning. It stays only a jar. You let the relief show. Grace reads aloud from the paper until the words blur, then switches to the grocery list just to keep the sound going. Inspectors. Masks. No lip pointing. Labels in large letters, black on white. A committee with a name so long it has to be true. You can't see the rooms those words will build, but you can feel the floor under them stop giving way. The pain is patient. It waits with you. When it flares, your mother presses a spoon heated to kindness against your cheek. When it subsides, you write a note to the Illinois girls you'll never meet, telling them which doors opened when you knocked with proof. You sign your name slowly, each letter like a rung, and rest halfway down. You think of the settlement, the camera bulbs, the judge leaning in, the man behind the glass who changed a word and found himself changed by it. You think of the forewoman's pause becoming an admission. You think of all the times the room went dark, almost, and how the almost turned out to be the part that mattered. There is a moment, quiet as a page turning, when the rhythm you've carried since the shop, that cruel little catechism, returns to you one last time. Lip, dip, paint. 3 beats. You feel the reverse of them spread through you like water. Stop. Rest. Keep. You keep the names. You keep the proof. You keep the light, not as a trick but as a witness. Your father takes your hand. Your mother says your name the way she said it the first time, like she was testing the shape of joy. Grace leans in until her breath is your breath. The clock in the hall ticks with proper manners. The room goes dim, properly dim, mercifully dim, and your bones, faithful to the end, answer with their small afterglow, a soft insistence that truth, once lit, prefers not to go out. Outside, a trolley clangs and recedes. Somewhere a committee argues over commas that will decide what a girl is asked to put in her mouth. Somewhere a factory floor is emptying for the night, and a jar sits in the middle of a table, conspicuously dark. You close your eyes. The air is cool and clean. The jar on the sill is only glass. In the space between one tick and the next, you find a kind of quiet you recognize from before any of this began, and you let it have you. The story that started in your mouth moves on to other rooms, courtrooms, classrooms, kitchens where daughters will be told to keep their brushes out of their teeth. Your name will live on pages that don't curl at the edges. Your light will not be polite. It will linger where it's needed, an afterglow that belongs to everyone who learned to say bones don't lie and then acted like it.